Today we're speaking with Dr. James Ingle, Professor of Oncology at the Mayo Clinic. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dr. Ingle.
Thank you for having me.
Could you first provide us some background on the connection between aromatase inhibitors and musculoskeletal adverse events?
Certainly. The aromatase inhibitors are a class of drugs that have become clearly established as an important part of the therapy of postmenopausal women with breast cancer. Now, generally, the aromatase inhibitors are tolerated very well, but recently it's been appreciated that there's this, it's called an adverse event, it's a toxicity really, where women can have what's called musculoskeletal adverse events. They can have aching all over, and in some women it can be so severe that they say, I can't take the therapy anymore, which is really an important thing to happen, because the aromatase inhibitors are, as we know, a very important part of a woman's therapy if they have estrogen receptor positive breast cancer.
So could you discuss the main hypothesis of your study?
Right. As I've said, many women can have these adverse events, this aching in the joints and the muscles, but we really don't know why. So our hypothesis was we could do what's called a genome-wide association study, and that would identify genetic variability that would be related to these adverse events. And we were looking specifically for SNPs, signal nucleotide polymorphisms, that would be related to these adverse events.
And what did your findings indicate?
Well, what we did was we looked at a very large clinical trial conducted by the Breast Cancer Intergroup of North America that involved over 7,500 women. And we found that the major cause of a woman saying, I can't take therapy anymore, were these musculoskeletal events. So we identified those women who had those events. They were called cases. And then we matched them with controls, women that essentially were the same. They just didn't have the side effect. So the important thing about this is, in this clinical trial, women agreed, they signed consent to collect their DNA and to use it for genetic research. So we took the DNA from about 300 women with the cases who had the adverse events, and matched each one of those women to two controls. Mm-hmm. We took that DNA, and in a collaboration between that was established by the National Institutes of Health here in the U.S. It's called GAP Japan, Global Alliance for Pharmacogenomics-Japan. And this is a collaboration between the Pharmacogenetics Research Network and the RIKEN Center for Genomic Medicine in Japan. So they are a world-renowned center for genotyping DNA samples. So we collected these samples, processed these samples on the cases and controls, sent them over to Japan, and they sent the data back. And basically they provided what's called genotyping data that goes across the entire genome. All 22 of the called autosomes plus the sex chromosome, the X chromosome in a woman. And so we took this data and we analyzed it, and we found 4 SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, on chromosome 14 that appeared to be related to these musculoskeletal adverse events. So that was exciting, but a lot of our work over the past 3 months, and much of what I presented here today in San Antonio, related to what are called functional genomic studies. We found that these SNPs were related to a certain gene that it's very close to, called TCL1A. It's called T-cell leukemia 1A gene. We showed that TCL1A is a gene that's actually perturbable, or its expression is affected by estrogen. And we related the SNPs to the level of TCL1A and the response to estrogen. So we're just beginning our work to relate these SNPs that we identified and define a mechanism whereby these SNPs are related to a gene and the gene's related to the adverse events. Because if you can understand the mechanism of what you find, maybe you can do something about it. And our goal in the end is to find something that will help patients.
Thank you very much. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
No, I think our goals here in the therapy of this very common cancer, breast cancer, is to find better therapies and to make them more tolerable for women. So thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.